Welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today I got a real treat for you. His name is Dustin Hansen, and he is the Streets Operations Manager for the City of Sioux Falls in beautiful South Dakota. Dustin, say what's up to everybody.
Hey, how's everybody doing? And I would say, yes, it's beautiful, but I think we're at like negative 20 or negative 30 wind chill today. So if people find that beautiful, then hey, come on over to South Dakota.
It's a definite acquired taste. Like I told you before, I went to school in Brookings at South Dakota State University. So whenever I see or meet or sniff somebody from South Dakota, I'm always a little giddy, Because I've been through those winters. I for sure get it. All right. So you are the Street Operations Manager. One thing I love about titles is the good titles, they tell what they actually do. But I want to hear from Dustin, what a street operations manager, kind of what you're on paper is supposed to be over, and then like in real life, what you actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in this role for about 6 years now. And prior to that, I managed the solid waste division for the City of Sioux Falls for 9 years. But as far as the highway and streets, we do all of street maintenance, management, and then anything to do with snow and ice control. So we've got a little over 3,500 lane miles that we manage during snow events. The other caveat is we also kind of are the contractor on call for any natural disasters. We've had tornadoes, we've had flooding. We had our first derecho a few years ago. Basically it's just straight line winds. And so we do all the cleanup for those. And so, yeah, there's a lot to it. And then a lot of times, in the wintertime, if we don't have a lot of snow, again, we're kind of the low bid contractor for like any demolitions or, if parks needs assistance, or other engineering projects, things of that nature. So it's, I definitely wear a lot of hats in this position.
I love it. You're the low bid contract. I never heard that verb before.
Which is good. It saves the city a lot of money because obviously we have a lot of resources, equipment, and people, and very experienced operators. So it's a good thing for everybody.
For those, like I live in Arizona now, for those in like a street operations manager in Arizona, this gets to be 120 degrees out here. Talk about what some of the weather, how it can, I guess, change, ruin, and make better some of the operations in these inclement climates. Like you said, it's negative something today. How does that change your game plan so far?
Yeah, I would say, we really struggled this morning, being negative 30 wind chills, and most of your contractors, they're not gonna start up, and most of them have, laid their operators off for the winter. But we still have to keep people busy. And one of the projects we do during the wintertime is we clean out our river system. We clean out the silt and the sand to get more capacity for flooding. So our teams, if it's not snowing, we've been working on that. That's just basically hauling it out of the river and then hauling it to a local quarry. But even this morning, we were kind of like, do we dare start all this equipment up and keep people busy? And I made the decision to do it, whether it was right or wrong, just because I've got probably 70 people that I got to keep busy today with something. And we just went through a snow event, but we had the whole city cleaned up by Friday. So that was about the last thing left to do for this week, was to haul sand and silt.
Yeah. You spoke about 3,500 lane miles. When you think of 3,500 lane miles, is there like a certain plan path? Like let's say the east side of the city gets more snow than the west side. Do things change? Like kind of what's you're driving into the office and you're already coming up with the game plan. Like kind of what does that look like?
Yeah, we've noticed that because we're pushing about 90 square miles, so fairly large city. And those lane miles, obviously that's quite a bit. We always say it's like driving from Sioux Falls to San Diego. So a lot of roads to manage and maintain. And we'll see that every once in a while where we might get 2 inches on the north side and 4 inches on the south side. And our game plan doesn't change a whole lot. We've got the entire city into districts of about 20. And so we try to make sure that they have about the equal amount of lane miles within each of those districts. So if we're sending out 2 plows or 3 plows in that district, they'll get done about the same time. But we'll notice that, like, if a certain part of town isn't getting much weather, we'll divide resources up and push them to another district to kind of maintain those. But overall, it's pretty consistent across the city. We have a high level of service here, and if we get a quarter inch of snow versus 10 inches of snow, it's really no different. We're going to go out and maintain those roads and provide safe travel for the citizens and anybody commuting through Sioux Falls.
Sure. Give us the Dustin Hansen career path. Like, let's say a youngster wanted to model their career after you. They want to be Dustin one day, super good looking with the Adidas, quarter zip on. Let's say they want to model your career path. Talk to us about what you did from high school and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting path. I grew up in a small town, farm kid in Iowa, and I always wanted to be a farmer. That was my goal in life. After my grandparents passed away, my dad said, "Nope, I'm taking the farm," and I said, "Okay, I guess I've got to figure out a different career path." And so I did a few different things. My dad was also a butcher, and he talked me into try to go into that, and nothing really sparked my interest. Finally decided to go to college and get my degree in architectural engineering, which was an interesting path because we only had about 8 students in that. So I took a lot of civil and construction management courses. And I had a family at the time, so I was supporting them. I worked in a factory from 11 at night to 7 in the morning, went to class all day. And then I'd come home and our youngest, she was 1 at the time, so I'd take care of her and then obviously do homework. So I slept maybe 2 hours a day for probably 2.5 years. So it wasn't fun. So my plan was to either get out of the real world or continue to go and get my bachelor's at Iowa State. But I decided I'm so exhausted. I decided just to get out in the workforce. So I got a position with a custom home builder, which I got a position as a project manager. And it was probably my first real life lesson of failure. Because I kind of went into that thinking I'm a project manager. I can do just about anything. I won't be doing kind of the labor stuff. And that's kind of where I failed because it was a small company, built probably 15 homes per year. We didn't have that many employees, but my head was too big for the position, and I failed. And I was let go, and I was kind of, I was upset at the time, but it took me a while to learn that, like, if you're going to go in an organization and you want to grow professionally and you kind of want to climb the ladder, you got to kind of be willing to do just about anything, especially if it's a young growing company. And I really learned that my next position I took with an engineering firm in Kansas City, and we had a client that wasn't thrilled with us, and it was one of my first projects. And I think it was really kind of poor communication from previous project managers on that site, and so I can remember that first week. I remember going back to the hotel one night, going, "Gosh, I failed at one job, and now I get to this one." I was like, "Is life really this hard?" Like, and so because I would get glares on the job site, and they would tell me to leave, and I'm like, "Well, you're our client. We're your consulting engineer." And it took me about 3 months to really kind of mend that communication, build it up. And I think within that 3 months, like, there wasn't anybody on the site, and there was probably 20 employees, 3 or 4 managers that I couldn't go to individually and have a really good conversation, let them know what was going on. And I kind of knew at that point, I was like, okay, I took from my failures and kind of was able to kind of build on them. And I kind of knew where I wanted to go after that. I kind of wanted to be a leader, be a manager. And so that's kind of when I decided that that's the path I'm going to take. So I worked for a couple different consulting firms before coming to the city. I sold industrial pipe for a while. And I took that position to really kind of help me build relationships with people, because I was kind of the shy kid in high school. I wanted to come out of my shell. So I took that as kind of an opportunity to go, this will really build my relationship building skills. I wasn't good at sales. I will say that. And so, I went to work for another consulting firm, and that's kind of how I got connected with the City of Sioux Falls. We took the City of Sioux Falls on as a client to help build their landfill gas to energy project with a large ethanol provider. And that was kind of the first time I had kind of worked with the city. After that, there was a position created at their solid waste side for me to manage that landfill gas energy project. And then I eventually took over the entire solid waste division for the city. And then we had our highway and streets operations manager retire. So there was an opening, and they were kind of looking for a leader to kind of lead this team. And I've been here for about 6 years now. So.
Wow. There's so much to unpack in there. The first part, what I'll bring up is that in again, like men or women, but as men, that 2-year grind. You said you're only getting so many hours of sleep at night. You're working these jobs. You're going to school. Just talk to people on why, like, pretty much everybody will go through a period of like that in life, and how it can make one better from that.
Oh, absolutely. I think being young, like sometimes you're not in that mature level enough to think of like, I really need to take care of my body. I need to, make sure that I am with my family. And those are the kind of things sometimes you just don't think about, or sometimes you just got to go through that grind to go, okay, I've got to get to the next level. I've got to be willing to, I always tell people this, like, if somebody asked me to clean the toilet, I would clean the toilet, right? Like that's the kind of mentality I got to be. And just like, I got to do anything obviously to support my family, but I wanted a better life for them and myself. And so, yeah, sometimes you're not going to get enough sleep. Sometimes your body's going to be tired, but you just got to push through. If you want to be a leader at the next level, sometimes you just got to push through that.
Yeah. I appreciate you being open about those jobs that you had where you said things weren't going right. I mean, I feel like when you listen to somebody's story, they just made all the right steps, had all the right decisions and the best choices and ended up at the top. And that's not life. Like I've had jobs where I'm like, ooh, this ain't a fit for me. I know they know it ain't a fit for me. Like we're going to have a conversation soon. How does one, like, I guess, give people a sense of what it feels like to know that maybe that might not be the right career, or not career, but just the job for you? Like you said, it could have been a startup position or any situation. Like, how do you know internally that it might not be the right fit for you?
Yeah, I don't know I don't think you really know until you maybe get into that position, or maybe it's the organization, because, I know that certain people fit really good with certain types of organizations because, I've worked for organizations that have had 3 employees or have had thousands of employees. And it just kind of depends there. And then also just as you as a person, you've got to be able to, once you get into that, figure out, okay, is this what I want to be? And when I was working for the consulting firms, really the only way to kind of climb up the ladder in those was you needed to be a professional engineer. You needed to be a professional geologist. Like that was your way to kind of climb to the top to become a VP or a president. And so I kind of had to make, my path at the time was I wanted to stay in the solid waste industry. So I'm like, one of my mentors said, I think you need to go work for a municipality, get some of that experience under your belt. And then if you want to go work for one of the large corporations, which I did, whether it was a Waste Management or Waste Connections, I was like, this will give you great experience to become a manager at one of those sites. But then once I got to the city, I found out that I absolutely love public service. And there's times where I'll put in 80, 90 hours a week, but I enjoy it. Like, I just, some people listen to that and they go, you're nuts. I was like, I don't know. There's just something about it, because like year 2, year 3, I'm just like, I don't want to leave. I just, I want to stay and continue to serve the community that I am in.
You talked about going to get that sales job to kind of pick up on the extrovert vibe and kind of get yourself out of the shell. And I love how vulnerable you are with that, because there's a lot of people out there, they think sales is like some scummy, sleazy. And I get it. Some of us are sleazy and scummy, but I do think that it takes a certain type of person to know where they're short at, if that makes sense, to know like where they need help at, and to go out and seek that through a job. I think that's huge. And talking skill sets, like let's say somebody asked you, they're like, Dustin, what would be the main skill set they should pick up to be successful at what you do today? What would that one skill set be?
Well, I don't know if I can narrow it down to one, but I was kind of thinking of this, and I would say my two probably are patience. Especially, if you're going into, working for whether it's local government, county government, city, federal government, like you got to have a little bit of patience. And then just, you got to be resilient. We know that we don't move that fast. So sometimes procurement can take a while. If you're looking at changing things within a division or a department, sometimes that can take a while just because of budgeting structures and your funding sources. So sometimes you just got to be patient. But then, we live in a world where everybody wants things instantly, right? Like I was just reading this article about, we can order a package online and maybe that day or the next day we have it, right? Like if we want fast food, we can now DoorDash it, or like we're in that society where we're just like, people want it right now. And going back to our winter events, like we maintain those 3,500 lane miles, and we have individuals that want their snow moved within hours. And sometimes it's not reality. We could probably do it, but we would have to increase our budget tenfold. We will get to it eventually. And, we always say we have one of the Cadillac service of snow removals. But I think that's where the patience really comes in, is it's going to take some time in any kind of event, whether it's snow or tornadoes or anything, to clean a large city up.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. It's story time. I need a story from Dustin. When something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Yeah, I'm going to maybe kind of go back to, when I kind of failed at that position right out of college.
Sure.
Like I said, took a position as project manager. I thought, and I can remember, there was probably 12 of us that were getting ready for graduation. And this was, what was the year? 2001, 2002. There wasn't a whole lot of jobs at that time. I think the economy was okay. But the jobs were just not there, and what we kind of expected, what we were kind of told what they would be paying. And I think there was only one other person that got he got a CAD drafting position, and it paid, I can't remember, it was paying like $9 an hour. And I'm just like, I'm making more than that in the factory. Like I've got a family. I kind of, put myself through college here. And then I was able to get this position. And I think that just kind of made my head a little bit too big for my shoulders, because I just went into it just thinking, oh, I'll be managing these projects. I'll be having, subcontractors do all the work. And that wasn't the case. I worked for a very individual that, he liked to see results instantly. We had a very small team. If we needed to pick up trash out of some of the yards or the houses that we were building, like we were just expected to do that, or the drywall work, finishing drywall, framing, like he expected us to know, like to be experts at that. And I just was like, I got hired as a project manager. I'm going to tell others what to do. Right. And so it was a huge life lesson for me. And again, I failed at it. But I look and I struggle with that afterwards. I'm like, why was I let go? Why, like I was brought here for a reason. And it took me many years to look back at that and go, this is why. And I'm honestly glad that it happened, because it kind of put me down to where I needed to be, to go, okay, give me a good foundation of the next organization you go into, or from here on out, you're really going to have to not necessarily say yes to every single thing that your manager or leadership asks of you, but you've got to be willing to kind of go that extra mile. And that's kind of the way I've kind of approached my whole career. I'll look at something that I've been asked to do, and I'll typically say yes to everything, but I'm going to say, I may come back to you and go, it can't be done, or here's how we're going to do it. And that's kind of how I've approached everything. And I can remember working for another small firm, and we were trying to get work. We weren't getting a whole lot of work. And I can remember myself, and we had a senior vice president that we picked up some remediation work. And I looked, I was like, this individual will never come out and help. But I can remember we had one cleanup that we had to do, and he's like, I'm going with you. He put on his work boots, got a shovel out, and we're out there in 100-degree weather shoveling dirt. And I'm just like, this is the type of person I want to be, is somebody like him. And that was just kind of how I was like kind of made, I guess, through my career.
Sure. It's that farm background in you.
Yes.
What would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions about what you do? You're at a dinner party, and the question always comes up. So, Dustin, what do you do? And you got to figure out how to easily answer the question without like turning them off, but with keeping them interested a little bit. So, you tell them you're a street operations manager. What do you think they think you do?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few misconceptions. I think the biggest one, since we're in winter, I'll talk about winter first. But I think they just assume that we can get the roads plowed instantly. There should never be snow and ice on the roads. And it's just not true, right? Like, we set our routes up to where, they're typically an hour and a half by the time our snow plows can get through them. And then we really don't even jump into our residential streets till probably, maybe 24 hours after we get all of our emergency routes done. I think that's a huge misconception, is that once we go out, we're on every street. We're going to clear it within hours. And I don't think any city is like that. But that's kind of a huge misconception. And then I think some people just think that's all we do is we clear snow and we fill potholes, and then that's it. But we've got a very diverse team that, we, in the summertime, we're completely putting in new roads. We've got our own concrete crew. We're doing the street sweeping. So any kind of maintenance you can think of on roads, we are doing. And I think that's where a lot of people are, have that misconception of like, oh, they just clear snow and fill potholes. And it's just not true. We do just about anything within the city.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, when you know somebody that works for the city, you kind of feel like you have a bat line. Like, I can call Dustin and get this done, or I can call Dustin to get this information. What are some of the notorious text messages that come to your personal or work phone that like family and friends are trying to get inside information on?
Oh, yeah. I would say, going back to, getting their street plowed, and one of the things we use here in Sioux Falls is snow gates. There's not a lot of communities that use snow gates, but basically when our crews are out plowing, there's actually a gate that drops right before it gets to your driveway, and it's supposed to keep the snow out of your driveway. And so I'll get a lot of text messages about that. Like, I thought you guys were using snow gates this go around. And well, we are. They don't eliminate all the snow at the end of your driveway. So I'll get a lot of those, and kind of like a wink, wink. You're going to come do my street first. And I get a lot of those questions when I'm out and about. It's like, now that we know each other, is my street going to move up on the list? And I'm like, nope, we've got a method on how we do it. So, and then probably potholes as well. As people will always text, well, I've got a pothole right outside my office or my house. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll put it in the system for you, or you can put it in the system, and our crews will fix it within a couple days. So that's probably the two biggest ones that I get. Or they think I'm a weatherman because I watch the weather so close, and I'll get, even from friends and family, what's it going to do this weekend? And of course, I kind of know, but it's one of those. Should I be telling people what the weather's going to be?
Yeah. What are some of like the Google alerts that you have set, like that? The information you want quick and fast.
Yeah, obviously that is all going back to weather. When the potential, like whether it's going to be snow or ice, when it's going to hit. the timing, the duration of the event. That's huge for us. Like many other communities, we've installed sensors. Obviously, we have hundreds of cameras that kind of give us alerts. We work very closely with the National Weather Service. They're a great partner for us. We kind of want to know when it's really going to be here, because in a snow event, we could have well over 200 individuals, not just city employees, but contractors that we have to get going to make this operation run efficiently as possible. But we also don't want to bring in those hundreds of employees and just have them sit and pay them as, just to sit. And so that's our biggest thing, is we need to know the timing of, when it's going to hit. And that's typically in the wintertime.
Sure. One of the reasons why I started the podcast was because I feel like Public Works doesn't get the same kind of love that, like, fire and PD. Like, again, you call in 200 guys, they're go out and sweeping this, getting the plow in the city and making sure everybody can get to work the next day, get to the doctor, get to their loved one's house the next day. But there's no, they don't bring you guys donuts and coffee. They don't bring you guys pizza, So,
we do get quite a bit of donuts, and I know, this winter hasn't been too bad, and last winter wasn't too bad. But we had 2 years ago, we had one of our worst winters. I know we had, I think, a week or 13 straight weeks of working 24/7, and I think we had a couple organizations actually come down, bring food down and serve to our snow fighters, which is great. And we are always getting cookies. And I can remember one year our guys even said, they're like, okay, you got to stop. We can't eat more of these cookies. So we do feel the love here in Sioux Falls.
That's cool. That's good. That says a lot about the community. It says a lot. Let's say you're commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of Sioux Falls. What ask of the community would you put on this billboard regarding streets, that you would ask of the community?
Yeah, I'll go back to, the skills that, like, just be patient. Be patient with us. But probably one of the things, we just started using billboards a couple of years ago. When we're going to clean the entire city, we call it a snow alert here in Sioux Falls. And so we'll use those billboards to let citizens know, drivers know, that a snow alert is in effect. And one of our biggest issues we continue to struggle with is getting individuals to move their cars off the streets. That's probably, if I could add that onto a billboard, move your car when we're plowing the streets. That is one of our things where, because obviously we can't plow to the curbs then if we have cars, but then a lot of times we get requests to come back to that street, which uses resources, time, to come back and plow that out, which we do. But it would be so much easier if we could just get those cars off the streets. And, a lot of times I drive around and I see these 3-stall, garages, driveways, and cars sitting in the streets. I'm just like, okay, that's fine when it's, 80 and sunny out, but when it snows, can we please move this to the driveway?
Sure. Let's talk innovations. What do you see coming down the road in regards to snow removal? Like some things you're excited about, or I could tell you're a thinker. So what are some things that you wish they would innovate on, or you've seen already coming?
Yeah, I've heard through the grapevine that driverless snowplows are out there, or they're coming down the pipe. That worries me a little bit. Obviously, I don't think that technology is there yet. Obviously, we have self-driving cars, and I've heard there's self-driving street sweepers. So I think it's eventually coming, right? Yeah. And I think we really have to prepare for that, how we're going to manage that. And I will say, I think there's going to be a lot of pros and a lot of cons to that, just because, we've had years where we really struggled to get, we rely heavily on a seasonal force in the winter, individuals that might be laid off from contractors to help us plow snow. And even our contractor base, we've seen that decrease just because they cannot find drivers to work those 12-hour shifts and those overnight shifts, especially. So, if they could get that technology down, some type of a self-driving snowplow it's definitely in our future. But as a manager, it's like, I got to look at that because I got to get these streets
Yeah.
plowed. But that, yeah, just AI in general is probably one thing that everybody is thinking about.
Okay. And like, I guess, what's your risk appetite? Are you the type to be first to try a new product out? Do you want to make sure that like other cities tried and it's good to go, or do you want to be last? Like, make sure everybody uses it and it's tested.
I'm probably a little bit of both. I'm really big on doing demos, piloting. I've done a lot of pilots here at the city just to see if it'll work. It is kind of sometimes nice to kind of say, hey, we were the first to kind of try it, and we were able to streamline things. So I would say I'm a little bit both, but sometimes some of that stuff kind of worries me a little bit. So we'll let somebody else try out those self-driving plows first.
All right. The insurance liability behind that. You kind of alluded to it, but I want to go deeper into it. Again, a lot of people, our best and brightest are already focused on aging infrastructure, but I like to focus on the aging workforce. Those who are 50, they're about to retire in the next 3-5 months, a couple of years. Where does Dustin go to find talent? Where do you find new, young guys and girls who aren't really familiar with public works or government work? How do you get them in? How do you train them? And then how do you keep them around instead of them getting their CDL and going to like Amazon or UPS or something?
Yeah, I think obviously everybody struggles with that just from a standpoint of, probably a lot of the younger generation probably don't look as an equipment operator or, fixing water main breaks is one of the things they want to do. But it can be a very rewarding career. And I think we've really tried to make our culture just extremely positive, one that people they want to come to work every single day. And I think we've done that here at the City of Sioux Falls. The other thing is we offer great benefits. We've increased our vacations. One of the things we just did recently with the new regulations with obtaining your commercial driver's license is we will assist you in getting that commercial driver's license to where I think, if you were to go out and get it on your own, and train with an institution, I think you're looking at close to $6,000. We've got those fees under $1,000, but we'll actually pay that for the individual if it's the right individual. So I think that's something that can really help people out. And I think really, we really love for people to come work for the city full time and make it their career. But I think sometimes you kind of have to realize like you may only have that person for 2 or 3 years. So I think you got to make the best out of it. And I think the generation that's coming up now, that's kind of their mentality. I'm going to work here for a little bit, see how far I can climb the ladder. But as leaders, as managers, we just got to be ready for that. We can't be discouraged and go, well, I'm not going to hire this person because they've had 10 jobs in 10 years. And sometimes that's what you got to take. You take the best of the best, and sometimes it works out where they stay longer. Sometimes it doesn't. But I think we just have to manage around that.
Yeah. No, I like the attitude on not thinking that everybody's kind of like, let's say, the baby boomer generation. They stick with the job for 40 years and then retire there. I think I'm a millennial. I know Gen Zers, like we kind of look at jobs as a way to get money and kind of move on with our lives and not necessarily, stick there forever. Kind of grab a skill set, get some money here and keep moving on. So it's interesting what it's going to look like in the next 10 to 15 years, as the Gen X gets older.
Yeah, when I was growing up, my father worked for the federal government for over 30 years. And I can remember that's all he's like, you got to go get a government job and you stay there until you get your pension. And that was like, it was driven into my head, like, this is what you're going to do. And we just, the generation doesn't think that way. So,
yeah. How are you cooking a steak? You do 2 minute sear, 2 minute sear, 8 minute, 8 minute?
I'm probably doing about 3.5.
Okay.
I like a little bit more rare. I've been told I grill a pretty mean steak, so my daughters approve. So
you said what's your background? Like, what's your birthday celebratory cut?
I'm a sirloin guy.
Okay.
Top sirloin. I know it's pretty basic, but top sirloin, cooked medium rare, with some good mashed potatoes. That's my go-to. Nothing fancy. Okay. So,
yep. You pan frying it, doing it on the gas grill, charcoal?
Doing it on the gas grill, yep. Don't have a charcoal one anymore, but yep, on the gas grill, which is still good enough.
That's what I do, man. It's easy, man. It's easy. All right. I always like to leave a space on the show for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey. Then also, I want you to give a word of inspiration and motivation to your fellow street operations manager counterparts across the country.
Yeah, I would say obviously, my family, my parents, grandparents, they were extremely hard workers, and that's kind of how I've tried to structure myself as after them. One individual, Dr. John Hartwell, that I worked with in Omaha, he was probably one that, kind of after my failures, seeing him, he was the one that came out there with a shovel and like he had worked many years in the environmental field, and just every day he would come to work extremely positive. And he actually had retired from one firm and came to work for us. And, he's like, yeah, I just want to work part-time. And we're thinking, okay, 10, 15 hours a week. He would outwork all of us. He would put in 50, 60 hours and just always, he was the type that if you had to go into his office and ask him about, could be a little project, a big project, he always made time. And he was just one that I, just to this day, that I always continue to thank. And, honestly, I still wish he kind of worked with me today, but he's always a good resource to reach out to and ask his opinion. But that's probably one of my mentors I always think about. So
nice. And then what do you say to the street operations managers? They're fighting the same battles they're fighting across the country. What do you say to keep them motivated, keep them inspired?
Yeah, I would just say, there's always positive at the end of the road. Those roads can get ugly. We're going to go through things that are going to test us. But you just got to always look that there's always going to be something, positive at the end of it. And just think of how many people, individuals, organizations that you are impacting every single day. And that's one of the things we tell people when we're hiring people is you can make a difference every single day. And what other occupation can you say that about? We are sometimes people, and we kind of want people not to really think about us, right? Like we're bringing you water, we're taking your wastewater, we're plowing your streets, we're fixing your streets. We kind of want that to maybe go unnoticed, because we don't want too many complaints, right? So that's one of the things is we can make a difference every single day. And one of the things that I've that I've learned through my career is, nothing is too big for your shoes. Nothing. You always kind of got to have that mentality of like I said before, if somebody said, hey, the janitor's sick, I need the bathroom cleaned, I would go do it. That's just the type of person I am. And I think if you want to be a leader, that's kind of, I'm not saying go clean it every day, but that's the kind of mentality that you need to have.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's say I'm coming to Sioux Falls and I text you ahead of time. I say, Dustin, where can I go to get the best burger in Sioux Falls? Where are you going to send me?
Yeah, I'm probably going to send you, the burger, my favorite burger is no longer here. The restaurant doesn't exist, but I'm a mushroom and Swiss guy. If I go anywhere and they have a good mushroom and Swiss, I'm getting it. But what I would tell people is come in January. I know it's cold when we have snow, but we have
nobody coming in January.
We have what's called the burger battle. And so
okay.
You can get, I think this year they had over 40 burgers at local restaurants all across Sioux Falls. I think they sold close to 7,000 burgers. But that's and they have some, they've got eggs on burgers, onion rings on burgers.
Yeah.
All kinds of burgers that you can enjoy. So that's the kind of recommendation that I
who won it?
Let's see. I think it was it's either Crawford's or Chef Lance's.
Okay.
And Chef Lance does make a pretty good burger, so that's probably one I would recommend too.
Okay. All right, good stuff. What was that bar called attached to the mall out there? Was it Cubby's or it's some Irish name or something?
Shenanigans?
Shenanigans, yeah. A lot of bad decisions made in Shenanigans. Yeah. Anyways, as we wrap up the show, Dustin, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge with this. All the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Dustin, any final words before we get out of here?
I just say, be patient. If you're going through hard times in the public works world, know that there's sunshine, a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, once again, thanks for hopping on the podcast. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you everybody for tuning in.